BookTube. Today I'm coming to you with another recommendations video. Classics get a bad rap literally everywhere, but when you're not reading one for school, having to fill a worksheet every 10 pages, there are actually some pretty good classics out there that I really enjoy. And so today I'm going to be talking about 8 of those classics. The first classic I want to recommend is one that was actually trending on Twitter recently because it talks about morals that are pretty wrong and not even representative of human nature. But I still really enjoy this book, and although some of the ideals and morals in this book are pretty outdated, I still think it's a very interesting concept, and so I think it at least deserves a shout out. And of course, I'm talking about Lord of the Flies by William Golding. This book is about a bunch of English schoolboys who got abandoned on this island and have to try to survive until help comes. And so it's about them basically becoming savages and forming these types of gangs and killing off each other. It's just a lot of savagery. The author, William Golding, was a World War II veteran, and so what he wanted to explore in this book was what he thought was default human nature, that when we don't have any laws or rules to govern ourselves, we will become savages and kill each other off. Now, when this book went viral on Twitter, it was to show a real-life case of when some schoolboys actually did get marooned on an abandoned island and how they actually survived for a couple of months, not killing each other off, and using their knowledge of plants and great human morale to survive until help arrived. And so this book is pretty outdated, but I still think it deserves a nod for its complete symbolism and for some of the best book memes ever. And I also have a really, really good copy of this book. It has decal edges. They're deckled, and I love them. The next classic I want to talk about is objectively my favorite one. It is just so good, and that is Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. Don't watch the movie. I haven't watched the movie, and I never am. I don't think it's going to do justice to this book because it's just so good. It's about this guy named Guy. Yeah, his name is Guy, who's a fireman in this futuristic world, but instead of having to take out fires, he actually uses fire to destroy the most illegal of commodities in this world, the printed book. Montag never really questions burning these books. He just thinks it's part of his job, and every single day he goes back to his boring wife and his boring house just to repeat it all the next day, until this young girl named Clarice opens his eyes to see the importance of reading and books, and so Montag begins to question everything he ever thought he knew. This book is just beautifully written. You could tell that Ray Bradbury loves writing so much. He has such a passion for metaphor and the craft and just building an amazing story, and it really shines through in this book, which is the one Ray Bradbury is most known for. He definitely has a lot of other good books, but whenever you think of Ray Bradbury, you think of this book, Fahrenheit 451. And really, it just teaches you so many important lessons about books and the importance of reading, while wrapped up in this amazingly beautiful story. And Clarice is a really underrated book character. I love this book so much, and it's not actually this big. They added so much bonus content to make it look this big, but it's like less than 200 pages. The next book I want to talk about is even shorter than Fahrenheit 451, if you can believe that. That is The House on Mango Street by Sandra Cisneros. This book is a series of vignettes told by this Latina girl growing up in Chicago, trying to figure out who she is and what her community is. And it's a very poetic story. I think it's very overrated and pretty pretentious, but it does contain a lot of life lessons, and I really enjoyed reading it. It's also a very quick read, so if you ever need another book for your reading challenge or another book for a readathon, highly recommend this book. It is a very powerful story, and it has some of the best quotes in like any book ever. And you really get to know our narrator better than a lot of books just because of the way it's told. And Cisneros has a very unique writing style that just shines in this book. The next book I want to talk about is The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. I hate this book, but you can't really have a list of top classics without mentioning The Catcher in the Rye. So it's about this boy who gets expelled from school and then tries to figure himself out by being very pretentious and judging other people in a way that people think teenagers are, and then going to New York City and eventually learning something about life. I don't even think he grows as a character, but that's what you're supposed to believe. And yeah, Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. The other overrated classic that apparently contains a lot of symbolism. That just kills me. That's a reference to what's in the book and what he says like every other page. The next book I want to talk about is one that I actually enjoy, right? A Wrinkle in Time by Madeline Lee Engel. Now this book isn't very much talked about, and I don't know if it's necessarily a classic, but it's a very old book. Old books that I like are classics, right? I don't know. This book is about Meg, whose father disappeared quite a while ago, but when a strange visitor comes to her house and tells her brother Charles Wallace, who's like a genius, and then their new friend Calvin O'Keefe, that their father might be out there somewhere, they embark on this crazy adventure that really does change their lives. And I feel like this is a very underrated book. I never hear anyone talk about A Wrinkle in Time. And although it does get crazy and kind of like video game-esque at times, I thought it was a very, very fun book to read. And if you love sci-fi or you love just meeting crazy creatures and going on a crazy adventure, I definitely recommend this book. There's just so much to this book. You can analyze it for days on end and it'll never get boring, because although it is very simplistic, it's also just a really powerful story. All of the characters, although they're marketed to be like pretty pretentious, they're actually just really fun to read. They're in pretty cool situations, and seeing how they get out of them and seeing the people they come across, it's just a lot of fun. The next classic I'm going to recommend is one that I also don't know if it's a classic, but we're going to count it as one, and that is from the Mixed Up Files of Mrs. Basil, a Frankweiler. The book is about Claudia, who doesn't want to run from somewhere, but to somewhere, and so she and her brother Jamie eventually end up at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and they immediately become wrapped up in this huge mystery that's conveniently taking place right where they've decided to set up camp, the Metropolitan Museum of Art. It's about them trying to solve this mystery, how it really is to live at this museum. It really is pretty crazy, and it's told in such a unique writing style and with amazing characters that you just can't help but love this book. And the ending gets pretty wild. I've read other books from this author. None of them were ever good, but something about this book just hit home with me. It was a very good story about this brother and sister who just decide to live in a museum and then get caught up in this thing that's bigger than themselves. They have to learn who they are as people while also trying to help solve this mystery. And it just has one of the best endings in literature ever. Lots of these classics are pretty quick books. Like you have those big classics that are like War and Peace, Oliver Twist. But then you have like Fahrenheit 451 and the Mixed Up Files and The House on Mango Street. And the last classic I want to mention is not Pride and Prejudice. I haven't read it. I've tried, but I haven't. It is Oliver Twist by Charles Dickens. This is the only Dickens book I've read, and I read it in India, so I had a pretty unique experience reading it. But this book is about Oliver Twist, who is this poor orphan who one day finds himself on the street of Victorian-era London and finds himself recruited into this gang of like bandits and thieves, and really gets wrapped up in the street life while also trying to figure out who he is as a person and where his loyalties really lie. You see this innocent Oliver Twist guy wrapped up in this horrible illegal scheme, and it's just a really poetically done story. And this book has just some of the best characters in literature ever. You meet Fagin, who's the villain of the story and just completely loathsome. You meet beautiful and innocent and precious Nancy. You meet the crafty, artful Dodger. And then you meet one of the best villains of all time. And this isn't just from the description. I actually think he's pretty twisted. And that is the terrifying Bill Sikes. Yeah, Psych. And it's just a really cool story. Charles Dickens summarizes the chapter before it even starts. A lot of this book is trying to figure out what that summary really means, because the summaries are pretty vague, and then in the chapters you have to try to figure out what he was trying to say, and it just makes the entire story a very fascinating and quick read, even though it is a pretty big book. And you really get to see Oliver's entire story, how it is. You get to see different perspectives. You meet a grand cast of characters, and you just fall in love with each and every one of them, unless you're not supposed to. The way Dickens really gets you enveloped in this writing style really, really quickly is just pure magic. So yeah, guys, that was 7 or 8 classics you need to read. I just made this really quick video because I'm getting a black background to my bookshelves because I don't like how the shine goes off this. The aesthetic is horrible, and I want to make the best possible videos for you guys, so I just thought, why not talk about something really easy? Classics. If you guys enjoyed this video, leave it a like, but more importantly, leave it a comment. Comment down below some of your guys' favorite classics, or what you thought about some of the ones I mentioned, especially Lord of the Flies. That one's really interesting. Subscribe for videos every Monday, Wednesday, Saturday, and I will see you next time with another video. Bye.
Hi guys, so I know this list is far from complete. I haven't read a lot of classics, but I definitely am trying. And a lot of the big books are classics, and so I'm thinking of making a video of reading a lot of big books, like War and Peace, or Quixote, or whatever it's called. If you guys are interested in that, leave a like, put it in the comments.